Yeah, everybody went from 2 to 10 to wherever they went.
This one is yellow, is it supposed to be?
Yeah.
That's the one that's charging.
Okay,
That's
all right, no problem. All right, now you guys have all quieted down and.
I don't know why.
I'd like to call the March 2022 Ag Planning and Tourism Committee Development Meeting to order. First motion of business to accept the minutes from the February meeting. Motion by Jay, second by Mr. Campbell. All in favor? Any additions or changes? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. Excellent. All right, first order of business is in your packet that you received, we have CPACE, Property Assessed Cleaning Energy Financing Program, and Sarah Smiley, Director of the Municipal Membership. Sarah, you are on. Go right ahead.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm Sarah Smiley, Director of Municipal Membership for Energy Improvement Corporation, or EIC for short. And I'm here to talk about our Open CPACE Clean Energy Finance Program. Some of you may be familiar with an old version of the PACE program that used to exist. So I'm here to talk about the new program that launched in April of 2019. And if it's all right, I'll go ahead and share my screen to take you through the presentation.
Go right ahead.
Great. I thought I'd start just with a little background about EIC. We're a not-for-profit statewide local development corporation, and the members of our corporation are those municipalities, that have opted into the PACE program. So these are counties and cities around the state. And so we have an annual members meeting each March where our municipal members can vote on our board of directors. And it is our mission to operate a successful commercial PACE finance program to help the state achieve clean energy goals and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. So it's financing for clean energy improvements that is secured through a special assessment that runs with the property. And this financing is enabled at the state level through Article 5L of the New York State General Municipal Law. And this law was adopted because the state recognized that access to capital was a hurdle for many building owners across the state to make the types of improvements that can stop wasting energy from their buildings and help them save money, as well as advancing clean energy goals. So the legislature passed this law, which authorizes municipalities to provide this type of financing, and it can be secured through this special municipally authorized lien that runs with the property. So it's similar to funding mechanisms for other public benefits that we think of more traditionally, like a sidewalk repair and sewer and water districts, where a special assessment funds the improvements, except in this case, the improvement is just on a single property, so the assessment is recorded against one property. And it's because of this municipally authorized lien that I'm talking to you today in terms of whether or not the county wants to get involved, because EIC cannot operate this program without the county's involvement. PACE is an alternative to a traditional bank loan. It can be used for up to 100% of the cost of the energy portion of the project, whether it's efficiency measures or renewable energy, and it's repaid at a fixed rate that can that can be repaid up to a term that can match the expected life of the improvements. So you might traditionally get a loan from your bank that has to be repaid within 5 to 7 years. This can go out as long as 20 or 30 years, depending on the scope of work being installed. So this enables building owners to finance much more significant improvements to their properties that can reduce their operating expenses, as well as providing the public benefit of reducing emissions from their building. And this can be used for multiple improvements to a building, or it can be used for an emergency repair, or they know their boiler is coming to its end of life and they know that they'll need to finance that. So it allows commercial business property owners to reserve their existing lines of credit or sources of capital for other business needs. And because this PACE financing is backed by this assessment that runs with the property, the financing the assessment transfers to the next owner if the property is sold. So it does not accelerate upon selling the property. And it's called Open Sea PACE because it's an open market commercial PACE program. So we have multiple capital providers approved to participate. Developers find PACE attractive because it's a lower cost of capital than other sources of capital they might traditionally use, like mezzanine debt or equity. And so including PACE for the energy portion of their project can reduce how much of those higher cost sources that they need to use or displace them entirely. And because it's only used for financing measures that are a higher standard of energy efficiency, it's providing this benefit to the community because they're building their construction project to a higher standard that produces fewer emissions. So measures that might be cut because they're too expensive, they can now incorporate because they have access to this lower cost capital. Depending on the lease, the building owner can also pass through the assessment to their tenants, who also benefit from the improved comfort of the building, as well as lower utility bills as a result of those improvements. Any type of building can qualify for PACE financing as long as it is owned by a commercial entity or not-for-profit. So this really spans all sectors of buildings, whether it's agricultural or industrial, office or hospitality. Any building can benefit from these energy reducing measures. The only types of properties that cannot utilize PACE are anything owned by the municipality, because it is backed by this municipally authorized lien on the property. And in our program, any residential building, like a multifamily building, that has fewer than 5 units cannot qualify for PACE financing, because we really want to keep this to commercial entities. Nothing that veers into individual homeowners can apply. Excuse me. So the types of projects that can qualify for PACE are determined by the New York State Research and Development Authority, or NYSERDA. They have a document called the Commercial PACE Guidance, and outlines how what type of project can qualify and how it can qualify. So as you can see, there's a whole host of measures on the efficiency side. So essentially anything that can reduce the energy consumption of a building, whether it's LED lighting, upgraded HVAC equipment or insulation or windows can be included. And then on the renewable energy side, anything that is generating renewable energy on site can qualify for PACE as well. And there are multiple pathways to qualify a project. The building owner can be doing a comprehensive whole building approach with multiple efficiency measures, or as I said, they could be just looking to replace one piece of equipment. So it'd be sort of a single measure audit to qualify it. And you may be aware that there are many incentives available either from NYSERDA or the utility company for these types of measures. So PACE financing would be used to finance the net cost after those incentives are accounted for. And these measures can be financed whether it's an existing building going through a retrofit, renovation, or gut renovation and ground up new construction. So this is to help improve a building or to facilitate a better building from the outset. This is a list of our current participating capital providers. We have links to all these providers on our website, so you can see the types of projects they finance either in EIC's program in New York or in other PACE programs around the country. So the idea is for property owners to really shop around and talk to multiple providers so that they can get the best rates for their project. And this PACE, Open Sea PACE is meant to facilitate larger projects to really see a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And each capital provider lists their preferred financing parameters on our website as well. So once a property owner determines they're interested in using PACE financing, we have an initial pre-application on our website that would allow us to confirm that the property meets some essential underwriting criteria that are in the local law. So they can't be in bankruptcy, they have to be current on their property taxes and mortgage payments. And if there is a mortgage on the property, we do require consent from the mortgage bank. And that is because the PACE assessment the lien that secures it is senior to any non-municipal liens. So after, so either the property owner can fill out that application or the capital provider that they work with can fill it out for them. So once we confirm that eligibility, they would then submit their technical scope of work. So that would be the energy model of the project, the energy audit, a feasibility study, as well as the calculations for the expected useful life of the improvements. And EIC has an independent engineer who reviews all of that, all those documents to confirm that the project does in fact comply with NYSERDA's guidance. Because the purpose here is to make sure that this financing is truly used for projects that provide a public benefit of saving energy. And once we get the green light from our engineer that the project can move forward, the property owner would enter into a finance agreement with the capital provider. EIC has an administration agreement with each capital provider that governs all transactions, and that contains indemnification for both EIC as well as our member municipalities. And then we also enter into an assignment agreement with the capital provider that is specific to each transaction. So at the time that they close the financial transaction, EIC would record the benefit assessment lien that secures the financing on the land records. And we do that on behalf of our member municipality. And we also at that time record an assignment of that lien to the capital provider. So going forward, once the repayment period begins, EIC sends a bill directly to the property owner and provides instructions of how the property owner should remit payment to the capital provider. So I mentioned that the PACE lien is senior to non-municipal liens. However, it is junior to any municipal liens. So it is not on the tax bill, which is why EIC is able to bill the property owner directly. And the entire benefit assessment runs with the property, but it is divided up into annual installment liens. And it is only that annual installment lien that can be enforced by the capital provider if it becomes delinquent. So the remainder does not accelerate. So in a case where the property owner becomes delinquent on that annual installment, the capital provider can enforce the lien. They'd follow the same process of foreclosure and timeline of foreclosure that the county would follow for delinquent taxes, except before they can do that, the capital provider has to pay off any delinquent taxes that are owed by the property owner. And so nothing here interferes with the county's tax collecting or enforcement process. If the property owner is delinquent on their taxes, you would do what you would normally do. And you just provide notice to EIC of the delinquency so that the capital provider can then step in to pay it off so that they don't lose their investment in the property. So this program, Open Sea PACE, that launched in 2019, was really designed so that municipalities can offer this public benefit to their commercial property owners without taking on any administrative burden or financial liability. So EIC provides the financing through this list of capital providers that are participating. EIC reviews all the applications from the property owners. We review all the technical aspects of the project with our engineer, and then we administer the lien on the land records, beginning when it's originated and through the life of the lien. So if there are any amendments that need to be recorded up until the time that we record a release of the lien from the land records. And as I said, we handle billing directly with the property owner. Each year we would deliver an annual report to the county that lists the properties that are using PACE financing and when the schedule of repayments are. So the municipality has no involvement, as I said, in the billing or collecting of payments. There's no obligation, there's no responsibility or involvement with guaranteeing payment from the property owner. EIC has created the legal framework, the local law and the municipal agreement on the structure of the program so that municipalities don't have to create it themselves. They can step into this existing program and there are no fees to participate. Since this new version of the program launched, we have seen a lot of interest from municipalities across the state. We currently have 68 participating, including 30 counties, and we have more that are in process to become members. Since 17 projects have been financed so far, including 2 new construction projects this past year. And we've also seen significant benefits to the property owners in terms of their energy savings, as well as the collective greenhouse gas savings over the lifetime of the projects. We list on our website all of the projects that have utilized PACE financing, but I've included here a sampling of them. These first 2 are the new construction projects. There was an eco-friendly resort hotel in Ulster County that is under construction, Wildflower Farms. So that used PACE financing for all the energy efficiency measures of the project. The next one is an apartment building in Schenectady County called Dutch Meadows, also using PACE financing to make the building more energy efficient than it would have been otherwise. And this third picture is a greenhouse farm in Niagara County, a very energy intensive operation. They use PACE financing to reduce the energy consumption through combined heat and power project, as well as LED lighting. And down here we have a historic hotel in downtown Syracuse, was undergoing a major renovation and used PACE financing for the energy portions of that project to make it more efficient, save on energy bills, as well as make it more comfortable for their guests. The Shrub Oak Schools in Westchester County that had been built in the 1950s as a Jesuit seminary and was undergoing a change of use into a boarding school, private school. And so they used PACE financing for that gut renovation. The next building is in downtown Schenectady. It was an office building that was sitting vacant for a number of years, and PACE financing was used to convert it into an apartment building. And this last is an example. It's a smaller commercial building that used PACE to install rooftop solar. And that was in Suffolk County. So if the county is interested in considering moving forward with providing this resource to commercial property owners, the next steps would be consideration of the local law. And again, EIC provides that template. Then it would need to authorize and sign the municipal agreement, and that authorizes EIC to administer the program on the county's behalf. And I mentioned we administer this program statewide, so our documents do need to remain uniform. Everyone has the same local law and municipal agreement. And once the legislative process is complete, our members have to provide a few other documents so that we can close transactions. And those include a municipal certificate and opinion of local council. And the lien filing letter is something that we would show the county clerk when recording a benefit assessment lien, so they know we're doing it on behalf of the county and should not be charged recording fees that the county would not be charged. And again, we provide templates for all those documents. Excuse me. Here's a list of counties that have opted in so far. And we have a list of all our municipalities on our website as well. And here's a list of cities. And here is my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have right now.
No problem. Sarah, can you go back to full screen so we can see everybody who's on the call? Thanks.
Absolutely.
Great presentation. Truly appreciate that. Questions? Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, Sarah. I'm Dan Shaw from Easton, but what is the advantage of your program over any entity getting a private mortgage?
So the benefit to the property owner is that this is something that, unlike a mortgage, this is running with the property. So it doesn't, they can transfer it to another owner if they sell the property. So it allows for a very long-term repayment. And it also will come down to what rates they can get from, if they can get cheaper financing, then they would probably do so. But it just gives them an alternative that may be less expensive than other sources of financing.
So would I be correct to state that maybe people that are businesses that have a lower credit rating or bad credit rating would be more flexible? Your company would be more flexible to provide this financing?
Well, EIC doesn't provide the financing directly. We're just the program administrator. So we make sure that the property owner has meets the basic criteria in the local law in terms of tax payment history and mortgage payments and no bankruptcy. It's up to the capital provider who's providing the financing to do the underwriting on the property. And what they're looking at for the most part is the project that's being financed and what kind of savings that would generate to the property owner, what their cash flow would be, as well as the resale value of the property itself. And they're, but they have a whole host of underwriting criteria that they utilize when looking at the property.
Go ahead, Laura.
Sarah, can you tell us, I know we talked about this briefly, but I'm not sure if I actually asked the question. Has the financing thus far been used to finance any large-scale solar projects?
It has not. So to date, it has been used for a few different rooftop solar projects, one of which is community solar, but it's on a roof of a commercial building. And those are in Suffolk and Nassau counties that have been financed so far.
So if we're talking use, there's a couple pieces in here that are important to alternative agriculture and hemp and cannabis. Installation of a building, as well as upgrading the lighting to LED lighting. Have you had applications that have come through in regards to cannabis or interior grow centers? I do you have an example, but I was wondering if you'd go into an alternative agricultural yet.
Sure. So that project that was up there in Niagara County, they grow hemp as well as lettuce in their very large indoor farm situation.
How far into the process of the how far along in your planning and implementation can you do you have to be at the beginning in order to, like, we're not part of this, but we do have some opportunities in the county. Are those opportunities that have already kind of like started their process, are they too late? At what point do you have to have the application process completed to have a project started?
Sure. So there is flexibility around that. So if they're, during construction and they still want to utilize this financing, they certainly can. Even after completion, if they want to refinance the project, they have the ability to do that as well.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, what costs or participation is required by the municipality if they opt into this? Is there any cost?
There's no cost. I'm sorry.
So you're good, Sarah. You handled that. You had it in your presentation too. There's no cost to the municipality. We're just acting as being a part of it so that the corporation can apply and be able to take advantage of it.
And just to clarify, no municipalities, no family homes, it's only commercial, right?
Anything above 4 units. Yeah.
Correct.
You have a question now?
I have lots, but not right now.
Well, maybe you should ask a question. If we were going to do this, what would it do to you? Anything?
I don't see a huge burden if you choose to go down this path, but if you do, I would obviously have a significant amount of questions. My first question, because of some of the other things that I'm involved with, is why a business would look to this rather than an LDC and EDC, the regional planning boards. Like, there's options out there for commercial properties already, so I don't know the attractiveness. I don't know us getting into a new business that's already provided for.
It's kind of going in my head too.
That's my first 10,000 foot.
I guess because this is energy conservation, it's kind of you're one path.
Right. But that was my first, we've got people out there that service the commercial community already. Mm-hmm. What's different in this vein, I guess, would be my first 10,000 view. Everything else I have is minutia.
I think I would say that it's another tool that the municipality can offer. So if a project already has sufficient financing, they don't need to look elsewhere, then they won't need it. But it can fill a capital stack if there is a gap. And, we've seen where they needed it to move a project forward. We've also seen it being used for IDA projects where they had already some source of financial support, but they needed additional financing. And as you mentioned, it is just for the energy portions of the construction project.
So I feel if we have buildings and corporations in Washington County that want to take advantage of retrofitting their buildings for energy conservation, that's where I see this as an advantage instead of going to the IDA who might not be able to LDC, but they could still go to the LDC first. This is just, to me, this is another opportunity for them to see if they can get a better deal out there. Yeah. Go ahead, Laura.
Sarah, is there a maximum amount of financing? Because traditional LDC financing, you're not gonna find for more than 150 to maybe a couple $100,000. Is there a maximum on this financing?
There is not. We've had a project, and it depends on the capital provider. We had a new construction project that used 20 million in financing for the PACE portion. Generally, they're starting to look at, like, on the low end at a few $100,000.
A lot of big buildings out there that can have solar panels on, barns and such. I look at it as an added, another tool in the economic toolkit for our business.
I can see where you would stack this with other funding.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah. But
I'm sorry.
Back to you. Much great.
Oh, this organization, is it the provider or a provider?
Good question.
So, are you the sole source of this PACE funding in New York State, or are you one of the authorized vendors in New York State?
So there are no authorized vendors per se. We're not part of the state, or specifically, we've worked with NYSERDA, but we're not authorized in that way. So we are the only administrator of this Open Sea PACE program, and it is the only PACE program that exists currently outside of New York City. There could be, if you wanted to, say, create your own PACE program as an example, nothing would stop you from doing that.
Just so that we don't step outside of our own procurement issues, you know what I mean?
Yep, understood. I did.
Yeah, what I see is the advantage to commercial investors or commercial property owners. And what we are giving up is all filing fees for the mortgages on these. So basically what they're saying is, in an energy-related loan or whatever program, our hands are off on any fees that we would normally charge. So we're actually giving up a fee to encourage energy-saving investment. That's basically what I see. But and I don't know if we, I guess if we're big green believers, you want to jump right on that. But I'm not a big green believer, but I'm not opposed to it. But right now, that's all I see is it's a state's way of circumventing some costs for commercial property owners. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that's the only cost I see to us as a county.
You're pointing out the black and white, and that's perfectly acceptable. I can see that. The piece to that I see is, is it going to spur investment in our county? Is it going to spur, individual corporations that are looking for that, to maybe this helps them to make that decision? I look at it as another opportunity, just another tool in the toolkit for businesses
that we give up.
Well, we give up. We're going to give up some revenue, but in the short term, but for the long term game, I mean, if we have a business that wants to come into Washington County, let's say Washington County versus Warren County, and it's a cannabis operator that wants to buy a building, retrofit it. They're going to spend, $3 million to retrofit a 75,000 square foot building. In Warren County, they're part of the EIC and Y PACE program. In Washington County or not, that there might be an advantage there for that investor to come in and then do that retrofit in Warren County as opposed to Washington County. I'm just playing devil's advocate, but.
Well, with the same token, playing devil's advocate, Sarah, why did Saratoga County choose not to do it?
Right, but the city of Saratoga chose to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that Saratoga County has not chosen to do it yet. They're considering it. I've been in some discussion with them. Because the city has its own tax lien authority, they have to opt in separately. So that's why the city opted in first, and hopefully the county will follow. But they can opt in separately. Whereas if a county opts in, all of the towns and villages within it automatically have the resource available to them. It's only cities that would do it separately.
What's in it for IECNY? What's the benefit for your organization by getting the county to opt in?
Well, that we see more clean energy projects around the state, the more municipalities opt in. I mean,
Sorry, on your, I think it was the last slide or second to last slide in regards to, no, since 2019. So the CO2 efficiency, there's 164,000 metric tons saved over the lifetime of these current projects. Is there a goal that you're trying to reach in New York State? And is there a runway in terms of time? By 2030, we want this much reduction in CO2.
Right. EIC doesn't have a specific timeline and milestones. We're just trying to, help the state move forward in terms of its reaching its greenhouse gas reduction goals. So, I'm sure New York State has its own climate goals. It's not that we have those same exact benchmarks. We're just providing a resource to help these projects move forward.
Have you seen across the state where agricultural, entities have taken part in this? Large dairy farms and things like that who have added solar units to their solar arrays to their rooftop roofs and things like that. Have you seen any projects like that come through?
We haven't seen that yet.
Methane digesters would be the other one.
That was the other thing I didn't see on here.
I saw it on there, but I didn't see any of them that were signed up.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
So how does your business model work? How do you get paid out of this? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand.
Sure. No, so we do have a fee for each project. So there's an upfront fee based on the project cost, which is capped. And then there's also a percentage adder to the interest rate that we charge to the capital provider. So we get revenue based on each project.
More counties, more municipalities you have involved, the more projects that you could scope from. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the goal is we had been previously funded through a grant from NYSERDA, and the idea is that this is a self-sustaining program that we're now only earning revenue from these projects.
Any other questions from the committee? Any action the committee would like to take? At this time? Not at this time by action by the committee, Sarah. We will talk about it more. Thank you very, very much for your presentation. We appreciate it. Anything else you want to let us go with as you leave?
No, I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate the chance to see you all, at least on the screen, and share this information with you. And if there are any follow-up questions or concerns, I'd be happy to come back or just talk one-on-one.
Absolutely. Awesome. Truly appreciate it, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right, take care. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. Good presentation. I enjoyed that. Good information. All right, on to tourism.
Interesting on that, so really, if there's any place where we could help any of our.
And that's really the question.
I'm not looking at ones coming in, I'm thinking our existing ones.
I'm looking at existing, but also what's coming in. Can it be something, a carrot that draws in a business to our
I
county?
agree with that,
Yeah.
but how do we help our businesses that are already here paying taxes?
If we look at it, what are the main businesses?
$20 million retrofit, if there's savings, that's a big deal.
Right. What's the savings to put solar arrays on barn roofs, on dairy farms? You would know that better
Ron
than me.
Irving or something like that.
Right,
you know.
right. So, and how many corporations do we have that would take advantage of that program, you know, without going through the LDC or going through, another form of capital, so.
Like Houston's got the big one down there where you just did the bridge. Outwards of those.
Yeah, H&B.
Yeah.
Yeah, those places, there might be big benefits there, we might be missing something, I don't know.
Well, Al had his hand up before me, but I would like to make a comment on this. Al, do you want to go first?
I just wanted to ask the chairman, if Sarah's gonna make that slideshow available, I wouldn't mind going back and doing that again. It is available.
It was distributed, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And my comment is along what you're saying, Brian, is that if somebody wanted this program, would they not reach out to the local supervisor and say, why don't you adopt it in your county? I want this program.
They might not be aware of it,
Well, how would they be able to-
That's the first I've heard of it. It
First I've ever
started in
heard.
2019. My question to her was gonna be, we're 3 years behind, you know?
So what are they gonna do? Are they gonna, how are they gonna hear about it?
They ought to be contacted NYSERDA for anything.
Right, and you would hear about it immediately.
You'd think.
H&B, how are they gonna hear about it? They're based in Massachusetts. So I think it ought to come from the, private sector back to
That's
the,
us.
and that will tell us if there's an advantage right away quick, because in the private sector, they'll weed that all out and say, yes, I can do something I couldn't do with conventional funding. And we have to give up a small fee to allow that to happen, well, then we could consider it, but.
Right.
So I just wanted to point out, this is actually the second, call it iteration of this program. We actually did have, there was another program administrator, it was a similar but slightly different program several years ago. We had them here at the county. The program overall, I think, seemed to be too much burden on municipality, not enough benefit. It sort of languished a little bit, and so since 2019, they revamped the program, and the administrator is new. So it's not, they've done a lot of work to it, but it's not a brand new concept. It's changes are more in the operations of the program.
So Laura, is this something like that comes through your office that you would reach out to individuals to find out if they were interested in, or is that really something in your area?
I think it's, as Supervisor Griffith said, it's a tool in the toolkit.
No, but how do they find out about it? Would they hear that from you, or do they have to hear from NYSERDA?
No, I think they would hear about it through the same channels that we currently have available, which is through the LDC, the IDA, Chambers of Commerce, et cetera. I mean, we don't, the only marketing, sort of mailing list that we have are through our tourism program. We don't have the capacity to put out announcements to a membership list.
Right, so like, I'm on both, but I don't know that I've heard it at an LDC meeting or an IDA meeting.
But you wouldn't, because it hasn't existed until now,
It just,
since 2019.
right. That's what I'm trying to get, is how does anyone find out? And I think.
Right, I mean, I immediately went to the cannabis guys that are, purchased the Morcom building in White Creek, because they're gonna put $3 million into that, is that, I know it's private funding that they're putting in, but is this a tool or an avenue or, something they could look at is, hey, maybe it'll save them a couple percent, which will in turn turns into a, couple $100,000 or a couple of $10,000.
It might be financed over 30 years, it isn't financed over 7.
True, that's the other thing too,
That's the other big benefit here, and the fact that if you sell it, it goes to the next owner.
Yeah.
It's competing with some of the IDAs too, remember?
That's what
It's gotta be.
yeah.
It is. And what it's doing is it's asking the county to lend its taxing authority, because this is a tax. It goes right to the head of the line, man.
No, Dan did it perfect.
It's behind us.
Right, yeah.
It's behind the property taxes, but the reason we're passing a local law and these agreements and all the rest of this stuff is this operates like a tax. That's how it stays, as long as it does. So they need
There you go.
They need
That
us to
makes
give
sense.
them that authority to do that, and that's then competing with you guys who aren't a tax. So if there's a default, and see, we we never talked, we didn't hear, and if you wanted to go forward with it, this would be the big question, is what happens when somebody doesn't pay? That's always the trick. Then what happens? Let's say they pay their property taxes, but they don't pay this thing. A normal IDA just has a normal little foreclosure. I don't know what these folks have, and I don't know what they're asking us in this municipal agreement / opinion of local council, asking us to do on their behalf if the guy doesn't pay.
They really want to nail that, okay?
Well,
That's what it looks like.
that's the question.
Do you want to see, should we inquire to see what the?
Oh, I figured I'd shoot her, if I thought there was a great outwelling of support for this thing, I was gonna shoot her an email, ask her for those documents.
Can you shoot her an email and ask for the documents
I can
anyway,
do that,
just so we can, I mean,
Right.
it adds more color to the picture, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know is the short answer, but there's a reason they need us
Right.
and want us.
Go ahead, Matt.
But I'm with Dan on this. I really think that if no business comes out and asks for it, why would we be doing it?
Go ahead, Supervisor Hicks.
If you were gonna do any energy efficient or safe, wouldn't you immediately contact NYSERDA? And NYSERDA must be promoting it, in fact, they might even be funding a backdoor approach to it.
All right, Supervisor Hicks, go ahead.
All right, well, Roger just kind of got to where I wanted to go. If this is something we're going to consider or potentially consider, he should probably get copies of several of those local laws from those other counties to vet those to see what's really involved before we even consider moving forward on it. And then you guys just discussed about getting that information from her. So that's where I was headed, but I didn't get there quick enough.
That's okay. We still admit you're smart, Matt. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. So if a person comes up and asks me as supervisor Fort Ann, they want to participate in this, I'm going to have that knowledge, but the individual community doesn't get to participate in that unless the county's in. If I understood it, she would assist the towns through the county for that, unless I misunderstood that.
You have to have taxing authority to participate. That's why the cities have independent taxing authority. That's why Saratoga, for example, could opt in and, the town of Saratoga can't, or the town of Fort Ann, because it's comes through the taxing authority. So the individual towns can't opt in or out of this thing. It's for us, since we have no cities, it's all or nothing.
Right, it has to come through the county. So is that what you're saying, Roger?
No, Mr. Griffith asked about what about villages that do have some taxing authority. I didn't see any villages on there.
You see 13 villages.
Yeah, they're all in Westchester. Right, so it talks about Westchester being a separate entity, and I suspect they start, because remember, she said they were an IDA something / something or other, so they're a special benefit corporation too. They probably started in Westchester County and then expanded out.
Sort of funded the whole thing to begin with, and now they're trying to stand on their own, and they can go on.
But they probably started as a smaller local organization that said,
Where I was trying to go with my question is that if we have to, as a county, be enrolled in the program before we can assist someone in our towns, what the hell good is it going to do to come and tell us, and we tell them, no, we're not a part of it, or we can get into it, we've got to be 2 months down the road when they're trying to start a business project.
Well, I don't know if 2 months down the road is far enough. I think that's more than enough runway. If somebody's looking at a business project like this, 2 months to me is not 60 days is not a large hurdle for us to have to implement this into local law to be able to take advantage of it. That's the way I feel. I don't know about the other
Yeah, you need the
supervisors.
public hearing time and all that, so.
You're talking 60 days, they're going to be going through, they might be looking at other avenues of capital. And I got to think that somebody's going to come to us, Sam, with a big enough project. They're not looking to do that project in 6 months. This has got to be a big enough project for them to be able to
I guess my concern, James, is once again, we're being reactive instead of proactive. And so we've gone down this road before. So we think it's going to be a 60-day debate, will end up being 90 or 120 days.
So we're going to have this April 29th. We're having a IDA LDC kind of workday forum. We were talking about having vendor tables, would this be somebody that we want to reach in and have them have a table, and then they can explain that to those corporations or businesses that are going to come, that we're going to invite to that event, and we would be able to gain information on whether it be an applicable resource for some of our corporations. Would that make sense, Sam?
That makes sense. Yes.
know you and I are setting that up, so, okay. I'd like to do that, so I'd like to add her to see if we can get her to come and take one of the vendor tables at that workshop that we're setting up.
It will be 120 days instead of 60, because we'll spend 60 weeks. Just so you know.
90 days. No, but if somebody comes with a big project and says it'd be really advantageous for me if the county got into this, so I could apply, and that would turn our wheels a little quicker. But again, if we're giving up, Supervisor Shaw hit it. If we're giving up revenue, our own revenue, for what reason?
One purpose.
Right. So. Good. We didn't beat that one too much. We'll beat it more later. All right. On to tourism. So as I announced on Friday during our board meeting, we had a great presentation by Black Dog. I'm going to let Laura speak to that before introducing Jesse and Chris. And please, I wish there were more supervisors on here to see this, but they got a great presentation coming up. So go ahead, Laura.
So I just want to mention, as you know, at last month's meeting, we talked about creating a somewhat standardized tourism budget at around $200,000. And the presentation that you saw last month was the activities that we would expect to be engaging in and the accomplishments we would expect to see through using that $200,000. And we, in the board, agreed to potentially use some of the ARPA funds to increase the budget so that it hit that 200,000 mark. However, in addition to that, as we know through the ARPA Stimulus Funding Committee Monday discussions, we had allocated the potential to have up to $200,000 a year for a 3-year period that could get allocated to tourism programs. So that can mean a lot of different things. What you're going to see today is a presentation on some ideas that we would have for engaging in additional activities this year and next year. One of the things that I want to point out is that we have the regular tourism budget. It's a calendar year to a calendar year budget. So I would view these initiatives that we're talking about as something that isn't necessarily going to be completed within this calendar year. It's something where we might start on some of these initiatives this year and roll into them next year. So again, I just want to make it clear, this is over and above what we already have agreed to on the tourism programming. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse and Chris.
Can I clarify that? Over and above the 200,000 that we think we're bringing in, or is that where the 200,000 is going to be spent?
So essentially what we did at last board meeting, we moved about $60,000, which could be considered to come out of that ARPA funding, into the regular tourism budget so that we could achieve that 200,000 mark. So you could say, if we were looking at 200,000 a year for 3 years, we've used 60 of that already because we've put it into the regular tourism budget to make up for the fact that Island of New York spending is down so much.
So you're saying there's 140 left of what we were figuring on, so that could be used towards this?
Oh, yes.
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 Okay.
Yeah, you explained it. When you went, no, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
If you do it by calendar year.
All right, it's your show, Jesse.
All right, cool, awesome. Well, thank you for letting us see how it works behind the presentations for a little bit there.
That's how the meeting is made.
That's right. No, but I really do want to begin by saying thank you, for all of your support over the past few years, your confidence, and really all of the opportunities. I want to speak for everybody on our team saying we are really excited about the contract that Laura just mentioned that we've put in place, and we're excited to get moving immediately. So starting off, we are in a pretty fortunate position this year to be able to potentially plan out the use of these ARPA funds for some new initiatives over the next few years. I wanted to highlight some of the proposed initiatives and share them with you today. 4 areas that we really decide to put our focus into: events, shop Washington County, the building of itineraries, focus on places to stay and short-term rentals, and the development of more multimedia. What we'll do is we'll just highlight some of these areas, go through them really quick, and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions or address any concerns. So events for 2021. We really want to piggyback off of the success of the events, and those being the branded events that we had last year, as well as the creation of new events. We also want to reflect regional event participation through some of the local municipalities, as well as the larger private events that are state related. We also want to host additional educational events, more meetings of the mind events for internal business owners, industry focused webinars to really be supportive for the business community. We found that there's been a lot of proactive reach out from business owners over the past 6 to 12 months, and we want to be proactive in that by supplying events where they're able to plan to attend. One of the most important aspects directly related to this campaign is the reflection of the spending inside the county. Shop Washington County will be a focus of these initiatives. The creation of an online shopping portal where county-made products are exposed, highlighted, and shared to the public, and users can buy direct from the manufacturer. An example, maybe if a craft brewery or a maple producer or somebody who is producing a physical product has the ability for themselves to sell online, we can essentially highlight those and then push them out to the consumer audience. Another aspect would be the creation of a deals and specials page where service-based or experienced businesses can show discounts and be accessed through the site. This is different than, a Mannix marketing or some other listing site. Again, we as the county and us as the promotion agency are essentially collecting this and promoting it for the business owners. Nothing really needs to be done on their end. At the end of last year, another really exciting initiative that we want to come up with would be furthering a lot of the existing campaigns that were based around subject matter specific content. So a lot of the trails that were put out, a lot of the things to do or make a day of, we really want to focus, drill down, and put more action to those. So really populating more information in regards to these trails, the Cheese Trail, the Arch Trail, the self-guided fam tours, and to really just have a focus on dedicating events to reflect tours and trails in a self-guided asset. The next thing we really thought would be convenient for people to do, and Visit Niagara does this really well, is to create an online itinerary builder. Creating a function on the website where visitors are able to go on and sort of build their own itinerary and then spit that out into a printable format, share it, email it to themselves, something to that effect. As far as the additional giveaways and contests, last year we ran a promotion which was an Washington County experience. That was one of the successful promotions that we ran. And I think we got close to 2,000 new email signups from that, really from all across the country as well. So focusing on highlighting the trails, creating promotions around the trails, this itinerary builder where people can create their own and document them. We're trying to give tools to people to build their own experience. Hot topic, I would say, here on everybody's radar, but these short-term stays get people into the area to ultimately experience, spend, and potentially relocate. Some of the things we would do if we're able to do these additional initiatives would be to host niche industry discussions on how the county can help. So the meetings of the minds events throughout the historical engagement of this campaign have been sessions that can really touch on all of the businesses and reflect how the county can support them, as well as have a way to listen and really be able to take action on a business owner's viewpoints. These would be specifically focused around short-term rentals and some of the trends that those hosts are seeing in the area, as well as providing support to them and really just becoming involved at a county level with those hosts. We also plan to supply the marketing material that was made last year, as well as the planned marketing material directly to those hosts. Hosts, have the need to create an enjoyable time for their guests. And one of the ways that they do that is providing and reflecting all of the things that the area has to do. Instead of them go around and scalp rack cards and pick this information up on their own, again, as a touch point, if we can supply something to the hosts, which is from a county perspective and a county branding, where we're pushing people back to the tourism site, we find that will have a great value. We also have this really cool idea of coming up with a welcome package where we can source a certain amount of products that are made inside the county, provide a sort of welcome package to those hosts so that when visitors arrive out of town, they're able to, make a cup of coffee with Lucy Joe's in the morning or experience something that is right next door in that town. Multimedia. So over the past 3 years, we've been doing photo shoots for the first 2 years, and the last year we started to do video shoots. Last year we did 4 video shoots, which really gave us the ability to, create a YouTube channel, send more different types of media out on advertising channels other than just stills. And if we can run this proposed new initiative instead of 4 videos, we can really scale that up to say 15 or 16 videos. We can make these videos something that are town highlights, they're niche and trail focused in the highlights, but I think that this would have a really, really big impact on quality of life reflection. Many of you have seen how we've created towns pages on the site itself. Everything that's happening in the tourism program is inside of the towns that you represent. We need to be able to highlight those towns and to reflect them, not only for the visitors, but also for the people that live here, and really proactively thinking those that may visit the area with the potential and ideal desire we have to have them move into the area and become a contributing member of our society. So if we have more media and more assets to focus on reflecting those towns, I think we'll have better tools to do that. That said, all of this video and media is 100% owned by the county. Once it's done, it can be edited and chopped up for other usage later. And we can really do a lot of new things such as display advertising or YouTube advertising. I know one of the goals is to attract a younger audience. And well, I don't really think that, investing all of the bandwidth into say TikTok is going to provide a return right now. Videos and running these ads on YouTube can achieve some of that, and also it will give you guys an asset that you can own and really reflect the authentic parts of your communities. I can stay on the next page as long or as short as you would like, and this is one of the last pages. This page is really a summary of the 5 different areas we plan on focusing, and then a few bullets to summarize this. Just to make it clear, obviously there are lots of details, there are lots of actions, and there are lots of pieces of input that become part of actually deploying this after your approval. I think right now what we're looking for is your openness and your comfort level and your approval for any aspect of this additional budget. And these are some of the general ways that we would plan to do that. And we can also reflect some of the whys and how that this would benefit. That said, we are fully ready to discuss any questions that you may have or really dig into the nitty gritty. We did want to be respectful of your time. We knew that would be a long Zoom prior to us. But we're ready.
Questions? Brian, you got questions?
Was it 2.25 listed there?
That was 195 listed there. But some of those things, Jesse, can you go back to the budget, please?
2.25, right? It's 2.25.
Oh, it's 2.25?
Keep in mind that we talked about the fact that this is not a program that's going to be just for this year.
And Jesse said this is,
I guess that's where I was at, was like with the I can see where all of them make sense, but like some of them might want to be split up on years. Like maybe you don't do all the multimedia in 1 year. Maybe do just certain.
it might be advantageous to do it all at once because getting that
Right.
production material together is part of the cost.
Yeah.
So hitting, you know, but then you also want to be able to be seasonal with this as well. We've already missed the winter season in regards to creating a multimedia platform for skiing and things like that, or even Maple. So we're past some of these things, so they will fall into next year's production. But this is a plan for how we can use some of that ARPA funds to really.
If it evolves into next year's production, there could be money available to fund it that way. I guess that's where I'm trying to meld together, to see what,
Do you mean out of the regular tourism budget or another source of funding?
I was thinking out of the ARPA fund, because you said this was all over and above.
Right, so right now out of ARPA, we have 60,000 that we took out, right? To get
So
to,
if you use 600,000,
Right.
whether it's 200 for 3 years
Right.
or
however you want it, yeah.
however you want to do it, and then you deduct 60,000 from that, that's what remains to spend on tourism. Now, I will say, part of the question is, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to spend all of that money on additional marketing programs.
Right.
There could be other ideas or projects related to supporting tourism, which again is why we didn't propose $500,000 worth of items. We sort of said these would be valuable over the next couple of years, and further discussion about other marketing projects could happen next year in conjunction with any other suggestions that there might be that would be programming that would benefit tourism.
But yeah.
Yeah, first of all, Jesse, I think you're doing a great job. I like your presentation. I like what I'm hearing. And I don't know if my question would be for you or for Laura. Laura, the two organizations that promote tourism or whatever you want to call it, who's it Hudson Partnership and the Champlain Canal.
Lakes to Locks?
No, there's a trail, bikeway or trail.
The Champlain Canalway Working Trail, yeah.
Right. Are they aware of what we're doing to where if there was something that it was advantageous for us to be, is there any way they can be kept in the loop on what we're doing so that they might see something to capitalize on that would promote Washington County through their organizations? Or could they get some advertising from this? I don't know how, because one isn't sanctioned as a county program, but the county supports it and you send your deputy, Pam, to the meeting, so.
So Hudson Hoosic Partnership hasn't sort of COVID and everything happened, so they were not meeting as regularly as they used to. So I have not attended one of their meetings in a while. I can certainly reach out to them, but I know that in past efforts, we have attempted to make them, as well as any other entity that might be able and willing to partner in promoting tourism opportunities across the county, we want them to be a partner. And
Good.
Again, we have been slowly ramping up on tourism budget, and it takes a lot of time to get out there, to knock on doors, to say we're here to help. How can we help you to promote your business, and then how can you partner with other entities in the county that might more effectively reach out beyond the borders of the county. Working trail groups, yes, they are definitely kept apprised of what's going on. In fact, the trails, the cards that you all saw, the rack cards, the Trails Initiative, they're going to be taking a whole bunch of those rack cards for use and distribution across some of the other events. So, yes, those two entities in particular are aware, and there are probably others that we're going to continue to try and reach out to and find and make sure that they're partnering with us.
Because I think the direction we're going is the right direction. And I see so many benefits from this. So I just want to make sure there's no roadblocks with what we have happening right now. And I'm glad you shared that information.
Yeah, one of the things I want to point out was the Shop Washington County piece. When we talked about last Friday at the board meeting in regards to what are we doing for our businesses in Washington County, giving our businesses an online presence to be able to sell stuff or create a a promo or a special offer that we can boost advertising to push business into the village of Cambridge or Greenwich or Granville, and, you know, promote some of our breweries throughout the county with, you know, the fall flannel fall crawl. Like, these are things that, like, I love this because it counteracts that letter that we received from that business owner. Says, here's what we're doing, and we're putting our money where our mouth is. So I really appreciate it. We had a really good, you know, before this, I was with Jesse and Chris and Laura for about 2 hours 2 weeks ago or a week ago. And just, there's so much stuff that's just coming out of these, productiveness that's coming out of our meetings in regards to what we're doing to promote the county. And I'm a tourism guy, so it's huge for me to be able to say, we're doing the things that were done in Saratoga and Washington County. We're looking at what's happening in Niagara County, downstate. We're taking good ideas that have been done throughout the entire other part of the state and other part of the country, and we're implementing those processes here. You know, it's going to take time. You know, we're building it, but, you know, we're putting the right blocks into place. Yeah. And I was not a supervisor 10 years ago, but I watched 10, 12 years ago as the transition happened from, you know, the promotion of tourism upper Washington County to then southern Washington County and all the.
You want to make us a little bit?
No, I want to make sure that you understand that we're not getting into that same. We're not getting there again. We actually have a good plan that's going to effectively promote all of our businesses from the north to the south and east to west. So
I can remember when Laura first came to work here, and we were starting or talking of ramping up this. The biggest question and concern was, how do you measure the progress? And I think now, after 8, 10 years, however long it's been, you're seeing it.
I think one thing is short-term rentals. We are now able to see what tourism really looks like in this county because we're getting an influx of Airbnb sales tax money. And if the state decides to allow for short-term rentals, just a blanket approach to where now the county can go out and get money from VRBO, well, that's almost the same amount of money that VRBO is getting, the other online short-term rental company, as Airbnb. We've $120,000 in Airbnb money since 16 months, 18 months.
So $115,000 for the calendar year 2021. The only actual measurement that I can compare year to year is Q4 2020, Q4 2021, because we didn't start collecting until the end of that year. It was a 22% year-over-year increase, Q4 sales tax revenue alone. I don't know what the whole year increase was because we didn't start until.
So here's the great thing. We know they're coming here now. Now we got to market right to them. And then that's where Jesse pulls in here in regards to working with the short-term rentals, because just like in hotels, so you go to a hotel and visit, there's all sorts of literature for you right there. There's all sorts of things, all sorts of coupons for you to go. That's what we want to get with these short-term rentals, is get them together as a collective group and help them promote the county. And specifically, I've already got the trail flyers and the tourism flyers at my Airbnb. So I pulled out the other ones, and now I only have Washington County flyers in there. If they go to Warren County and find something in Vermont, they end up leaving there. Oh, it's okay, I don't mind. But
and see, the same way with me. We have an Airbnb right in Fort Edward, and the first thing people ask when we meet them there is, what's there to see in Washington County or in the area? They don't say Washington County, they say within the area, because the only thing they know is Lake George.
Right, yeah. Or Saratoga Racetrack. Yeah, the big things that everybody.
Right, that's all.
Where do we go, where do we eat?
And the more we can keep them eating locally, great restaurants in all of our towns and villages.
I love this because it's right along those lines. Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Sue. Brian said you can go. That's a rarity, so go ahead.
Thank you, because I got to run. Real quick, the Salem Chamber of Commerce had their meeting last night. And their big thing was, Jesse and Laura, if it goes back to they wanted to know if they could help the county create Washington County maps. Okay, hands in, open it up. Let's go to Washington County. But a lot of internet, there isn't access to do GPS or whatever in your cars. They want a map to pull out from the Airbnb. They want to be able to open it. and they want to see where they can go in Washington County. So that's my 2 cents. Great job, guys. I've got to run. But I
Thank
told them I told them I would tell you guys that. So
Awesome. We've assigned it. We're on it.
I think a map is great, Sue. The piece about the map is whenever you see those maps, there's always a border around it. Those are businesses. Those advertising businesses, they end up paying for the map. So the map can be an expensive piece because it's a printed material. So I think, to look at the map is another, form of, how we spend the money in regards to the paper material that we're creating. So whether we offer businesses because on that map, then those businesses, they're strategically placed on the map because they did they paid for advertisement around it.
How about a QR code for their menu?
exactly.
So every single one of those trail guides has a QR code. And they all coordinate.
Sue, just because I know you have to run, just want to point out, we actually have redoing those maps on the agenda. What we have been waiting for is the last time the county purchased those maps, we've still got a few cases of them left. So I didn't want to spend a lot of money on maps and have to throw the existing ones out. So we're getting to the point where we're going to run out of inventory probably this year. So yeah, the intention is to redesign that and make it, a little more cost effective to print, but user friendly.
I bet Laura, I bet if everybody took more maps and put them in their Airbnbs in their town, that would help get rid of them.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think a lot of things have changed. New businesses, new restaurants, where.
That's the thing. The map is very much outdated. I mean, especially, I can just think in the village of Cambridge, how many businesses are not there now that when that map came out were there. And what new businesses are there that aren't on the map?
So since your time is of the essence, I'm going to go first.
Thanks, Brad. I gotta go.
All right, Sue, thank you.
So what I wanted to clarify.
Jesse, can you go back to full screen so I can see everybody, please?
Yeah.
The money we're talking here and the other things, you're not putting us in a position to have to pick and choose. You're trying to stay within the budget number that we've come up with already over the next 3 years?
The ARPA money?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to figure, because if there's other priorities than these, I'd hate to move forward on these to find there was something that we wanted to do that now we've already spent the money we can't do.
No, so that's what our production meeting behind the scene was all about, was being able to put forth, what do we need to do, and what are the building blocks for us to be able to move forward? And Jesse and Chris did a good job putting values there. Some of these values are going to change. It might cost a little more in some other areas and less in this area, but they put a value there so we could understand what's it going to be to create, a full tourism focus. And like we said, coming out of the pandemic, this is the time to do it because, we're going to be able to capture those people. And then the other piece is with fuel costs being so high right now, I think a lot of people are going to be, staying more local. So again, I think this is this year and next year, the 2 years to really impact, and then, we'll be able to see what the production is, after that.
I just wanted to make sure that this was the first building block and we weren't cutting out a priority that we had to pick and choose later on that.
So I guess this is a question for Al. What I kind of was thinking might be a good way to handle it is to keep the regular tourism budget separate from these initiatives. So if we put another account code into the tourism budget and basically put an amount into it, whether the committee wants to put the entire amount of all of these initiatives or a dollar amount, and then we'll make the initiatives match it. Then what we don't get stuck with is at the end of the year, the money goes away and we've got to start all over again, because then that line item could just roll over into the next year. And then as we think about other projects that we might want to do with that money, they could then just be put to that specific GL account.
So my question on that is, could we take that $600 that we earmarked from ARPA? I know we got it all back in lost revenue, but can, as Laura said, create a separate line and put $600,000 in there?
You're talking like a capital project, really, even though it's not a capital project.
He's thinking.
Kelly's picking his words.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to find a way to say no without sounding obstructive.
Right.
So the separate line is the easy part.
Okay.
There's nothing, unfortunately, there's nothing in general fund that will automatically make it roll.
Right.
So but it takes 5 minutes to go and, like we do with the public health grant, it takes 5 minutes in committee to roll the funds forward.
Yeah.
So it's not a burden to roll it. There's no way that it's gonna automatically roll.
Okay.
Because it doesn't qualify as a capital project, as Brian was alluding to.
Right.
And he'll need a place he'll need a place to budget this anyway, because it'll be built into future budgets after the ARP money's gone. So.
Yeah, what the problem would be is, you can only budget it when you're gonna do it, because you wouldn't have to move
But
it.
the separate tracking's easy.
Yeah.
That's easy.
We wouldn't have to move it from year to year if we adopted something and then funded it, instead of putting it in the budget.
So the other piece we talked about this and knew is that this tranche of money won't come until the second tranche
Right.
comes in. So we're talking July, but at least it gives Jesse and Chris an opportunity to start getting the wheels in motion on some of these actionable items. Right, Laura?
Right.
Yeah.
It could be video and the April stuff.
Yeah,
You
Jim.
didn't approve their contract till last month.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, I think this is a great discussion. So obviously we're having a conversation about investing in our future. The rate of return is measurable on this. And we can track that so that we can go back and say, look, we invested, here's our return, or what we believe to be the return. We got to sustain the program. So there's two parts, I believe. I think we've talked about it. Al said it a little bit, but no matter what, Brian, we're going to have to sustain these initiatives, and they're going to cost us a little bit every year to keep them going. And then we'll have to look towards growing in areas that we didn't see before as well. So just keep that in mind, I guess, as we move forward with the process. I want to thank everybody. This is good work.
Thank you.
So the nice thing about that, Daryl, is the $105 that we took in OCTAX money last year, it's still over in OCTAX. So we have not touched that, but the expectation, the conversation that we had is that once we get through the spending of the ARPA money, is then, and maybe it's, at the beginning of the year, we look and see what do we want to do, and we take and move some of that OCTAX money over into that separate line item, budget accordingly.
Here's the way to ramp up.
Right.
Get there.
Right, so we don't have to wait for an approval process, we can move the money and continue going. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I shared with Lori yesterday what my anticipated number for the reserve is, and the OCTAX reserve is starting to grow itself a little bit too. So there is some options going forward, because I think that, and I know it probably sounded snarky, but I think that you will be building something in this budget in the future. I don't think that you get accustomed to spending $400,000 a year and then pull back to 150. I don't see that being a legitimate.
It did come across snarky.
And $400,000 a year, in comparison to Warren County, that's 10%.
I think that this is a way to kind of ramp, this is a way to ramp our county
Right.
into a different level of funding.
Right.
So just to comment on that, that was one of the reasons for thinking that it might be a good idea to keep this as a separate line item, because the expectation is we have a baseline tourism budget with which we engage in the same kinds of activities and tasks that we did last year. The OCTAX balance, I've said consistently, I would prefer to keep banking that, because my anticipation is I Love New York money is only going to keep going down. So in the future, in order to keep that regular annual budget at around the $200,000 mark, I would anticipate that we're going to have to start using that OCTAX. But it would be better, in my mind, if we held on to it and didn't use it for special initiatives when we have the ARPA funding to do that, and that way those OCTAX reserves are there when we start getting shorted by I Love New York.
Why do you think I Love New York? I mean, I know before they were in trouble statewide fiscally. Why do you think now that it will still continue to go down instead of go back up like everything else?
Right.
It's gone down every year for 3 years.
But if they
Yeah, but it was.
implement a tax on short-term rentals, don't you think they'll pull per percentage of that and put it back into I Love New York, to fund I Love New York? I mean, that's where I would go with it, but.
You mean for the county or the
State. So the state, isn't the state's legislating or to put a sales tax on the entire short-term rental for New York State, right?
There are two kinds of taxes that the state is potentially looking to generate from short-term rentals. Sales tax collection was actually included in the governor's proposed budget. It did not include occupancy tax collection.
That's on the county.
However, there is a bill that's been worked on literally for about the last 4 years that would create an agency within Department of State that requires all short-term rentals to register with the state. There's a certain set of rules that are going to have to be adhered to that are mostly public safety, things like you have to have a fire condition or a fire extinguisher and certain other things that hotels have to adhere to as well. According to some of the legislators that I met with about 2 weeks ago, that bill, even though it wasn't included in the governor's budget, did get included in the One House budget, which moves forward with creating that office within the Department of State. The answer that I was not able to get is if this agency is then collecting the occupancy tax from all the short-term rental agencies, who's doing the monitoring? Like, are there safety inspections, et cetera, of all of these registered short-term rentals? There's going to be a cost to that somewhere. It's kind of unclear, and I haven't been able to get an answer from anybody as to where that cost is going to.
I still think, what was the amount of money that, I have a number in my head, but I'm not sure if it was right. The amount of money that the state thought they were going to take in by implementing a sales tax on Airbnb or short-term rentals. It is. Isn't it like $28 billion? Yeah. Right. So they're not going to take some of that money and skirt it over to I Love New York?
I'm with you. I think that because of their stress, their fiscal stress, they cut it way back, but I gotta believe this thing's gonna expand at some point now.
Yeah.
It would be great if it did, but I'm just not counting on it.
The glass is half empty approach. Got it, Laura. That's a tourism operator right there. All right. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I'm a little confused now, so just clean this all up for me. This is a proposed budget in front of us, correct?
No, the proposed budget came in February. I wasn't here.
So this is the budget for this year?
This is the additional spend. So we approved $200,000 at the last meeting, okay? We have $600 that we earmarked in ARPA over a 3-year spend for tourism, aside from any of the budgeted.
So this has nothing to do with the budget that was adopted?
Correct.
Right.
This is above and beyond that?
Right.
Okay.
There's $140,000 left of what would be $200 of a 3-year plan, if it was $200 each year.
Right.
So we could adopt this and only spend up to $140, and some of the things we're gonna go into next year anyway, it would probably work with the same numbers that we're already talking about, is the way I'm understanding it at the moment.
It leaves us room to propose additional uses for that funding. But meanwhile, we're back to the same problem where some of these items that are proposed, they take time. Like you need lead time to get moving on them. You can't wait until, I've got $5 left of ARPA money, so, these take time to create. So this way, we haven't used the entire amount of the $600,000. We've put together enough that we've got some really great things that can be accomplished this year and next year, and we've left room for other ideas.
And some of these multimedia things are going to have more than 1 or 2 years. They're going to be able to use, we own it's material we own too. So any sort of photography, videos, commercials that are made, Washington County owns those, and we can reuse them how we see fit.
So with that answer, do we have to take action here on this if we choose to go ahead with it and then forward it to the full board? Or what's our duty here today, or what's the job in front of us to make a decision on?
Go ahead, Al, will we have to send it to the committee or?
So, Laura, I'm glad is sitting down, she may have to brace herself. So I think an appropriate action, if it's the will of the board, would be to take some kind of action today, because she alluded to moments ago, some of this stuff has a lead time, if you're gonna get any of the benefit at all. Cause, I mean, the biggest game changers, I've seen several iterations of tourism in my career here. And, you know, some of the biggest changes is with these VRBOs and the Airbnbs. So the biggest struggle we've always had before was we were a day trip community. That's not the case anymore. And some of what they want to do, you know, you alluded to the lead time. I don't think that there's any harm. I say there's no harm. I always have to give a little bit of gray cloud. If the second tranche of money happened to be stalled or didn't come, you'd be on the hook for whatever you've advanced in advance. But you know, another $200,000 at this point, you're not. You know, you
can float it for 6 months.
You could float it for whatever that period of time is going to be. Right. Because honestly, if you wait too long on this budget, you're actually talking the 2023 season. If I understand what I've seen in the past.
And maybe this is a Jesse question, but I'm thinking that we're gonna, however we want to move this, we're not gonna want to go outside the constraints of our budget. So even if we pass the whole thing, it has to be built in a way that we're not beyond whatever we put in the budget to do it.
Well, I think you would send a $225,000 budget amendment to finance out of here if you were in favor of this plan. Right. That's what I think you would, again, if it's the will of the board, that would be an appropriate action.
But it would be to increase the tourism budget, but have a separate.
We would create a new line within the tourism department for this funding and fund it at this level, with the understanding that the unspent amount would be rolled forward next year. That's all very easy to do if that's the will of the board.
Will it be labeled the tourism rescue?
Tourism enhancement fund.
So is there a motion from the board? Motion by, and I asked the attorney as well, we can move that right into one motion, so separate line item as well as the $225,000.
Well, that's how we'll write the resolution that way anyway.
Okay, good.
I'll second it.
All right, second by Dan. Anybody online got any questions?
My screen is still covered, so I can't see.
Jesse, can you unshare, please?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know why I can see it, but nobody else can. How do you use Zoom? That's my question. No, I mean, I certainly don't have any, but if anybody else does, I would love to address any of your questions. It really sounds like a positive, feeling and emotion that everybody has inside this group. And that is, that's something that is really reflected upon us every time that we're in front of you guys and ladies, especially by being there from the very first, introduction to this about 3 years ago. I wrote a couple things down just to touch on them, but as far as touching our local areas, like our neighbors and partners, that's something we're actively doing all the time. I just spoke with Kate Morse from Hudson Crossing Park, and that is like northern Saratoga County, which the bridge connects into Washington County. She's a prime candidate. She wants the collateral. She wants to show things off for the people that are visiting. So all of this, all of our neighborlies and all of the aspects about not playing favorites and not sort of categorizing or boxing ourselves. That's the total method. As far as interaction from outside the area and local, one of these things which is coming to light over the past few minutes is timing. Right? At the end of last year, we built this whole visitor's guide, and because of the timing, we published it and we printed it right at the end of the year. So we finally have those. We have this request a visitor's guide ad that's up. We have a section on the site, and we have people that have requested visitor guides from inside the county, Chicago, Germany, all across the Northeast. So people are actually seeing this stuff and requesting, literal brochures and things to get sent to them. So I do feel like we're making a lot of progress that way. Another thing to touch upon our neighbors, because I know somebody mentioned the day trip aspect and repositioning with the STRs, is we have a really good opportunity to put an ad in right on Saratoga Living. This goes right on everybody's seat at the track. and everybody is looking for something to do on the off days. So with these increases in the budget, we're able to do more things, but as you guys said, it does take time. So I certainly don't want to be, in the position that we're pressuring anybody or, in the position where something that cannot be done because of time. The perception and the desire that you have to roll these funds over into the next year is ideal. When towards the end of this past year, when we started to get pressed up against the calendar year, that's not the most effective way to make decisions and to publish and to share information with our parties, putting our best foot forward. So the idea that this money rolls forward gives us the flexibility to line things up with the talent, the vendors, and all the relationships that we've had. And I've had a hard time myself wrapping, my head around what is this number versus that number. But I think one way that I've really stepped back to think about this, that I was talking with Chris yesterday, is there are funds available, and you all seem to be incredibly lucky to have Laura working with you, because she is able to foresee this money and know how it can get spent, and then builds a plan to allocate it so that she's already asking in advance, so that when we get to sort of decision time, the money's been spent hypothetically, or there's solutions. So if somebody wants to come in and create new objectives, new initiatives, no money has been spent, we're still having this conversation. But she really did provide actionable, realistic ways to spend it, which I do think will only help, multiply the work we've been doing. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Supervisor Hicks, are you still on? Go ahead. Brian, go ahead. All right. I just want to...
Spirit of no.
We got a motion on the floor, so I want to make sure you're here to vote.
I'll let you do that.
You want to do the motion?
I just had a question for Jesse.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor to pass this proposed additional $225,000 spend on tourism as well as create a line item separate that we're going to track and be able to flow year over year. That makes sense?
Move it to finance.
Move it to finance. All right. So all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Excellent. Brian, go right ahead.
Yeah, so Jesse, the biggest thing, and I've seen this in the North Country in one of the groups I worked on, you talked about mapping out your own itinerary, and it gave, hours or minutes between points and all that, where you could stay and all. I think that's quite a neat thing from what I've seen in that presentation a couple years back. Of course, COVID probably messed that up a little bit for them. That's kind of different to anything we've been used to here. What do you foresee in the next couple of years that's going to be way out of the realm of what we're used to seeing? Is there anything you can give us on that right now, or?
I think that, personally, I think that social media reach as far as paid advertising is going to be on the decline, right? So, yeah, massively. As much as everybody likes sharing their personal information with publicly billion-dollar companies, people are aware and they're restricting this and they're opting out of it. So while a lot of the effort and the platform that we have is to create a network online so that these things are reflected, it's also thinking about, outside of social media and things like display ads or videos or things like that. The way that we really look at this, and this is not, there's 4,000 answers probably based off who you ask, but all of these platforms are sort of transient in our mind, right? Whether it's TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or really what have you. And we need to be able to create a narrative and a story and to reflect the authenticity of what's there. And the itinerary builder is a way for people to be able to see everything and to be able to build it on their own, right? So they're able to just visit the website and then add these things to a trip and then receive it in an easy way to ingest and to utilize it versus, I don't know when the last time we used MapQuest was. I don't really have a printer anymore, but that was kind of hard to drive with sheets of paper on our lap all the time. So what we're doing is we're trying to characterize this info and tee it up and make it easier for people to access. I don't really know why I started to talk about the social other than it's a constant flow and adaptation, right? We could run a ton of social media ads right now, but people are becoming more and more aware and they're opting out of that. So why don't we direct people to the website and use something like display advertising where they get ads 3 days later because we know they've been to the site, and they get those ads on USA Today or their email or some other network outside of social media. Or why don't we run YouTube advertising? Because a lot of times people will look up, what is inside the area, and then they'll look at these people's self videos they made or local tour guides, and we're able to interject that messaging right once they already have an interest. So I would say that what is the future of that? The future is to be consistent, and the future is to build a story that's going to be real. All of these devices, whether it's, Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is. I mean, I got my first job at the Yellow Pages and then at a newspaper. Not a lot of Yellow Page designers anymore. So what we got to think about is how are we presenting ourselves? You know what I mean? And we're just going to be able to adapt to the platforms that are in use during the technology or, at that time.
Yeah, Jesse, I was going to add your point on being transient. And when you start bringing up like YouTube and TikTok, is obviously, like a 12-year-old isn't making that decision to come to the county now, but over time, if we do develop all these assets, say the videos, for example, now and run advertising on YouTube, 5, 10, 15 years from now, these people are familiar with that. And now they are the ones with the purchasing power, making the decisions to come into the county. And I think you're already shifting and hitting those audiences now, so they're aware of Washington County, as opposed to being like, hey, these people are 40 years old, 20 years from now, and now they've never heard of the county.
Chris, I think your point there is valid, but I think you are saying that the 12-year-old doesn't make the decision based on the commercial they see on YouTube. I think the 12-year-old or the 10-year-old does have an influence on where they go to vacation. And I think if you watch YouTube or watch your kids YouTube over the next 3 months, watch how many Great Escape commercials there are in between advertisements. Watch how many Zoom Flume commercials there are. Those commercials are going down on regular TV and they're going up on YouTube because the YouTube and you gotta have YouTube Kids because there's different type of advertising, on YouTube Kids versus. But I guarantee you're seeing the Great Escape or Six Flags spend way more money on YouTube commercials than they're traditionally spending on television commercials.
Yeah, and I have 2 daughters, 11 and 14, and Chris has still some personal freedom left. So, a little bit of a different figure to it. But with that said, like YouTube, all the TV in my house is one of those smart TVs or Roku, right? They're affordable. They're $300 for a TV. My kids have YouTube on for like 7 hours a day, and it's just blasting the most obnoxious stuff. And what's in between it? VRBO ads that are like pumping, based off my behavior or this or that. And, it's a great point that we're developing a message that's going to last a long time. And we're also developing media that we can use, or even like streaming. We ran some streaming ad campaigns last year with part of the Fall Flannel campaign through Vermont and different areas. And we can monitor and see the traction that people are actually going there. So we look at it as, these are the channels that we're going to advertise, but as an agency, what's the mission? What's the passion? What is the voice? Because you have all these channels, but if you don't have the video and you don't have the messaging and you don't have the stories to read, we're just sort of waving something shallow, I guess, in front of them. So that's why a lot of this plan really has to develop the beef of the trails on the site, of the ways to build your itinerary, of the video assets. Everything else, we could turn the dial up and down as far as the ad dollars.
Thank you. Guys, great presentation. Thank you. I know you both worked really, really hard to put the effort in.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other stuff for Jesse and Chris before we let them go? All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. Truly appreciate all your time and effort and energy, and look forward to the first meeting of the minds.
Thank you. See you guys later. And gals. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Laura, do you have any other?
I have a couple quick things that I just want to point out. Some of you may be aware that also through federal stimulus funding, there was some EDA, Economic Development Administration money that was available for a variety of projects. You also may recall that I've been working with the Washington County Fairgrounds for some time They have some significant needs related to broadband infrastructure that needs to be deployed across the site, also wastewater and a few other things. In working with the fairgrounds, we had agreed to help them with an EDA application that would have combined getting some funding to address their wastewater system needs as well as the broadband needs. It was fairly late in the day, and in my discussions with federal EDA, they recommended keeping the ask to a minimum. We then determined that the cost for the broadband, and it's not just broadband, it's the ability to do live streaming, broadcast, and a whole bunch of other things that go with this, but it ended up being about $640,000. So in order to simplify the application, we pulled the wastewater out of it, and we were halfway through doing the EDA tourism application when we were notified by EDA that they'd run out of money. So I contacted them. They had another pot of money that wasn't specific to tourism, but we could make a case that this project for the fairgrounds would fit. So EDA basically said, you're halfway done with the application, finish it, submit it, and we'll consider it along with the other projects. So, Pamela and Rebecca at the fairgrounds spent a lot of time working on this. It is submitted. We're going to keep our fingers crossed because I think that it would make a huge difference to the fair. So going back to this ARPA funding, we've talked that there are various ways that we could help the fairgrounds. We had a couple of ideas. The fairgrounds could potentially fall under the category of tourism, but if they go forward with some of the other infrastructure plans, it might fall under that. So at some point, the board is going to want to consider whether the requirement for the grant on the broadband side required a 20% match. So the fair committed to the match. But if the board should decide that they want to assist in any way with that match, that will be a conversation that will happen if the project is awarded, and or other conversations about, maybe we leave it that way and help them with the sewer infrastructure, which was also part of the discussion. But I bring that up because we've talked about the fact that we didn't want to use all of that budget up once because there are other things that we may decide that we want to support.
Was there a reduced number that goes with that?
Was 680?
It was 640 to begin with. Did it go down when you went to just tourism and?
No, it would have been well over $1 million.
Right.
Oh,
We
okay.
had included, and the sense that I was getting from EDA, this is the way that this will get funded, is if one of the big projects has a little bit of money left over. So we chose to go for the smaller amount and increase the chances of getting the project funded.
Makes sense.
And that's 20% of 640 is what the commitment from the fairgrounds would be, and if you want to match that. Okay.
And that's not a small amount.
But it was, again, the fairgrounds is committed to it,
Yeah.
but at some point, if the funding is awarded, it's worth a discussion as to whether we want to participate in that.
And the fairground had roughly $250,000 for both these projects. Is that correct, or am I pulling that number from another?
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Sounds good.
So second, on the same front, there is another, it's federal funding that's passed down through New York State DOT that allows entities like senior homes, hospitals, et cetera, who transport and provide services to senior citizens. It will provide transportation, a vehicle basically. So we worked with the Kingsbury Senior Center, and this was a miserable application. And again, I thank Pamela for this. Essentially what we requested is it was about an $80,000 cost to get another van. That van also helps LEAP and helps our Office of the Aging. So that was submitted a couple of days ago, and we'll sort of see how that goes. But it's early in the year, and we've already been buried in grants, so keep our fingers crossed to get funded. And on that same note, and I don't believe at the Ag Planning meeting last month, we hadn't had the news, know that we participated in a 6-county application to the NTIA to get additional broadband. Funding was not awarded. There were no awards in New York State. When we sort of did a debrief on the grant, it became clear the average cost per passing of the homes that were included in the application across all the 6 regions, or 5 counties, was about $6,700. The average cost per passing that NTIA funded was closer to $2,000. New York State was basically 4 times higher than any other state that was funded, which goes a long way towards explaining why no money was deployed to New York State.
So we have to figure out, we have to find another route for budgeting or spent on broadband. We have to.
Yeah, I mean, I could sort of sit here another hour on broadband, but I mean, we'll wait until another meeting when we have more time to be clear about it.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Laura. A piece of business that was asked for me to bring forward, Chairman Hall is not here, but Chairman Hall asked that, this committee take a look at joining the Adirondack Regional Chamber of Commerce. And, I'll open to discussion, but one of the comments that I first want to make is, one of the things we discussed earlier, what you said earlier, Laura, is we don't have a large database of businesses. And, before we get into the conversation in regards to this, I'm part of the ARCC for my private business, or not my business I operate. Every Monday I get a newsletter from them, and every Thursday I get a newsletter from them, and that's over 2,400 emails, specific emails, and over 700 members. So I know some of that crosses between Warren and Washington County, and some of it's Northern Territory County. But if we're looking for an avenue to be able to promote to our businesses, tools that we have with the IDA, the LDC, the ARCC is already doing it on their own scale. I told Chairman Hall I'm very much in favor of this, so I wanted to bring it up to the board and let the board have their input on this. I'm going to make a motion.
Let me start. So, we just had our IDA meeting last night, and $950,000 is out from Elise just towards trying to connect the Canal Side Park with the sewer district, and it was strictly from work done by the ARCC that helped get that funding from Elise. And if they can make things like that happen, at 500, whatever you said it was, I think it's well worth it.
Yeah, it's $551 for an annual membership. I probably shouldn't have said that publicly, but it's a negotiated rate between the ARCC and.
Yeah, well, the public, because we budgeted, so.
Right. They're going to see it anyway, so yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, therefore, I'll make the motion that because I think there's plenty of other things. I've been to some of their stuff where we meet with all our representatives at once, and you don't get any other opportunity to meet with all your representatives at once. So there's some good things, and we'll include all of us, and therefore I can stand behind it.
Brian's got a motion. Dan, we were talking about an ARCC membership, Adirondack Regional Chamber of Commerce membership for the county to become a member of the ARCC, and just some of the
Adirondack Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, and just some of the added benefits in regards that I pointed out was, I'm part of it with them all. So, but the newsletters that we get every Monday, e-newsletters that we get every Monday and every Thursday, goes to over 2,400 members and over 700 businesses. And it's got a lot of good information in there. And I know that ARCC's been working with Washington County with Tim Hardy and making sure that information gets into those newsletters, and has been every single week during the entire pandemic. So.
And it's $500 some dollars.
$550 for an annual.
And we've never been a member before.
A long time ago, we remember.
We remember for many years. I think in 2010 I probably took the money out because we were dire straits.
I think we were there previously because there was health insurance benefits that you could get as a member of the ARCC, but that's kind of gone away in regards to the ARCC used to be able to offer, similar healthcare coverage as, as.
I knew that, yeah.
So, but now with the universal healthcare coverage out there, it kind of took that apple or carrot away from the Chamber of Commerce's to be able to offer that to businesses. So businesses can literally go to the exchange and get get an even better rate than what the chambers were able to offer. So, I think that's part of the reason why there didn't seem to be a need for it. But I think one of our big needs is being able to distribute information to our businesses, because we only have such a list of businesses. This gets us in front of more businesses. It is going to overlap and get businesses in Warren County too, and northern Saratoga, but I think there's a lot of advantages there. We're getting the dialogue. I got a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to second it. Okay.
So I just wanted to add, so two things. Just one, the money is not currently in my budget, but I mean, I'm great, I'd love to support it. The price that was offered, was that a, sort of an introductory rate? Does it stay the same into next year? Do we know? Because I do know that's a great rate.
Right. So typically, in my history with the ARCC is they have an annual increase, or, it could be flat or it could be annually increased based on your introductory offer. I don't think they're, they're looking for a way to work together. They base their pricing off of how many employees you have as a business.
Right.
So, I'm not sure if it was, I don't believe it's an introductory offer. I think that's what the price is, and I think,
I just want to make sure, because it's not in my budget.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, I've been very generous today, the $225,000 I supported. But I'm having a hard time with this $500 one because I don't see the benefits to the county. And
So
if you can show me that, I'll shut up.
all right. I asked Mr. Biddle to give me some information on how the ARCC has positively affected Washington County over the past number of years that he's been there. And so we have put out much of Washington County's COVID information with Tim Hardy and his team, worked together to get more equipment tests, et cetera, from the governor's office. Together along with Warren County, we were able to secure the long-lasting relationship with the mall for the vaccine and testing. Worked together to make sure not only Washington County but North Country region was heard by the governor's office. There's a lot of advocate that he promotes here. As Brian said, the $950,000. Also together with Whitehall, when Whitehall got hit with the flooding, they worked with the state and federal level to procure funding to help the towns and villages. Partnership with the IDA to secure millions in future tax dollars for the energy transmission lines. Annual state of Washington County helps the neighbors to understand an emphasis on the budget. Advocating on some other things that are going to come out as a result of COVID, child care, economic development, raise awareness for mental health and food insecurity, J1 and H2 visas programs, broadband expansion. So those are some of the things that he sent to me in regards to the benefits that we're already getting from that. I think what I see, and there's a lot of what we're doing with our businesses and getting them the information. I said this I had a conversation with Brian earlier. I think that's the area where we lack at the county. We have these great programs. Jesse and Chris just did a great presentation. And one of the things, and you've been to a couple of meetings of mine too, right? The constant there is those people that are there are the same people. You know why? Because we got their email address. The other ones that don't know about the resources we have because we're not able to get to them. And we don't have a plethora of people to go out and secure the market to get resources to promote to the businesses what we can do to help them. I think that's the biggest benefit of this spend is we're going to get that information.
Are you saying a business in Washington County can't join ARCC?
Oh, they certainly can, and all the chambers of commerces that are part of that are in they're micro chambers, so they're already part of the ARCC. So, yeah, this is more. I look at this as a tool because not only do they have the newsletter, but they also have the podcast that they have each week. It's a way for us to get some of our businesses onto the podcast, into circulation. Yes, some of the businesses certainly take advantage of that, but I think we can use it for the county to get our word out on what we're doing. I mean, you look in the room here. There's no news agency. There's no coverage of what we're.
Is Warren County a member?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe so.
They are.
Yeah. But,
And for me, you'll spend $500 to send me to finance school. To me, while the education is invaluable, one of the bigger things, and I've had this conversation with Brian before, one of the bigger things I take back from when you send me to training is the relationships and the networking.
Yeah.
With the amount of money that I see you committing to tourism now, this is almost a no-brainer to me for just the networking part. But aside from everything you just listed, just the relationships that you're going to build, if you're going to go down this new tourism path, like I said, that you send me to Syracuse for training, then one of the most valuable things I bring back is the relationships. This is an opportunity for that same thing.
I agree.
Another opportunity to say to Washington County, don't do business.
Matt, did you have anything you wanted to input?
Yeah, I'll support it as long as you don't make me the point person to be involved in it. That's all.
Laura's the point person.
I just heard Laura heard it.
I was wait. That was my next question. Who's going to be the head honcho on this whole thing? I don't know. On my screen here, it says James Griffith Ag Planning Chair.
Yeah. All right.
Well, James, as long as a conservative like Matt supports it, I'll support it.
Al's part of the Conservative Party.
I'm a little surprised by myself today, but yeah.
All right. Any other comments or, all right, we want to move it to finance? Yeah, motion to move to finance from Brian, second by myself. All in favor?
She wants money in her budget.
What's that?
Because I'm assuming she wants money in her budget.
Yeah. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. That's like Laura. Anybody else have anything else for? That being said, we'll adjourn the February meeting. 58. Thanks, everybody. What's it?